From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, let's take a look at the latest headlines. Hezbollah fires more than 200 rockets into northern Israel in retaliation to an Israeli airstrike that killed one of the group's top commanders. The Philippines signed a defense pact with Japan, allowing for the deployment of troops on each other's territory. Manila says the official announcement will be made as early as next week. The United States celebrates its 248th year of independence. Americans across the nation will commemorate the milestone with elaborate displays of fireworks and air shows. Mexico deploys its Navy to carry out evacuations in the country's south as the Category 4 Hurricane Beryl enters the Gulf of Mexico after hammering the Caribbean. And tech giant Google's greenhouse emissions rise by 48% within a year. Google says its artificial intelligence-based computers use 33% more electricity compared to conventional software systems. We begin here in the United States, where President Joe Biden has promised to stay in the race for the White House. The defiant commander-in-chief has rejected growing pressure from some Democrats to withdraw after the debate debacle on the 27th of June. President Biden says, quote, "I'm not leaving. I'm in this race to the end and we're going to win," end quote. Now, these remarks come after Democrat Raul Gravalia of Arizona became the second sitting congressman to call on President Biden to drop out of the race. Gravalia joins Democrat Lloyd Doggett of Texas, who also demanded President Biden step down from the ticket. Now, in an attempt at damage control, President Biden did meet senior members of the Democratic Party just yesterday, where he was assured of their support. However, reports say that the 81-year-old president privately acknowledged that the next few days remain critical to whether he can actually save his campaign. Meanwhile, Democratic governors of New York, Minnesota, and Maryland came out in full support of President Biden.
We, like many Americans, we're worried. We're worried because of the threat of a Trump presidency is not theoretical for governors. We've served when Donald Trump was president, and the threats to our nation were real.
It was a great conversation with the president and the vice president because it was honest. It was candid. I think that, we always believe that when you love someone, you tell them the truth.
Came together tonight to listen to President Biden tell us in his own words what his plans were. I'm here to tell you today, President Joe Biden is in it to win it.
Now, reports from the private conversation reveal that President Biden, in fact, blamed himself for his debate performance and shielded his staff from any accusations. Now, this comes after several Democrats allegedly blame President Biden's staff members for not preparing him well enough for the verbal face-off with Donald Trump. However, the highest levels of the Biden administration say that the Democrat will, in fact, stay in the race, as they have dismissed theories about him suffering from age-related mental health conditions.
Is President Biden considering stepping down?
Absolutely not. And you heard, I believe, directly from the campaign as well.
Does President Biden, at 81 years old, have Alzheimer's, any form of dementia, or degenerative illness that would cause these sorts of lapses? And it's a yes or no question. And if you don't know, why don't you, as one of his senior staff members, know?
I have an answer for you. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
It's a no. And I hope you're asking the other guy the same exact question.
Now, as the United States marks its Independence Day, the Commander-in-Chief plans to gather with family members at the White House as the Biden campaign regroups for potentially what is one of the most crucial moments that President Biden is facing in his long and esteemed political career. And from an election in the United States to an election in the UK, polling booths open across the country, and the fate of Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak hangs in the balance. Now, opinion polls have predicted a landslide for the Labour Party. As Britain votes, the 14-year rule of the Conservatives could be coming to an end, as Keir Starmer is set to replace Sunak in 10 Downing Street. Here's our report with the latest details.
Fourth of July has arrived and Britons are going to the polls across the country. After a 6-week-long election campaign, the UK will decide which party will form the next government. Will Prime Minister Rishi Sunak win his seat back, or will Keir Starmer's Labour Party take over after the Conservatives being in power for 14 years? Now, as the ballots across the country opened, Rishi Sunak and his wife Akshata Murthy and his rival Keir Starmer and wife Victoria Starmer arrived to cast their votes. Even though opinion polls put Keir Starmer for a landslide victory, various other surveys showed his win could be without a groundswell of support or financial resources. While some Londoners were hopeful for change, others were less confident. They felt no difference in who wins because all parties are offering similar policies.
Yeah, I'm voting Labour. It's actually a new constituency, so I think probably it is going to go Labour. I've been a Labour voter basically since I could vote. I'm feeling excited. I feel like it can only get better, right?
There is not much to change if you look on the parties, right? So some of them, both of them do few promises, but I don't think they can fulfill what they promised to the public.
Throughout their campaigning, while Labour promised to create a new publicly owned energy company, nationalise the railways, cut net migration and recruit 6,500 teachers, the Conservatives promised to introduce compulsory national service for 18-year-olds, introduce an annual cap on migrant visas, recruit 8,000 police officers and cut a further 2 pence of national insurance to abolish it. Voting began at 7 a.m. local time in more than 40,000 polling stations across the country. From church halls, community centres and schools to more unusual venues like pubs and even ships, voters were seen flocking in big numbers to choose their next leader. After the voting ends at 10 p.m. local time, broadcasters will then announce exit polls, which will typically provide an accurate picture of how the main parties have performed. The number of seats up for grabs across England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland is 650. A party needs to secure 326 seats to have a majority in Parliament. And if any party fails to win a majority, they may have to enter into a coalition with a rival. The results are expected on the 5th of July. So, who will be Britain's next Prime Minister?
And moving to Asia, Russia's Vladimir Putin met his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, summit in Kazakhstan on Wednesday. The two leaders held their friendship and oversaw the expansion of the regional security bloc, which was jointly established by China and Russia in 2001. Now, in his opening remarks, Putin told Xi that Russia's ties with China were stronger than ever and touted the SCO summit as a powerful instrument for advancing their foreign policy agendas across Eurasia. Meanwhile, Xi went on to call Putin an old friend, adding that both the nations have laid plans for the next segment of bilateral relations.
It has been stated more than once with good reason that Russian-Chinese relations of comprehensive partnership and strategic interaction are experiencing the best period in their history. They are built on the principles of equality, mutual benefit, and respect for each other's sovereignty. Our cooperation is not aimed against anyone. We do not create any blocs or alliances. We simply act in the interests of our people.
双方要继续秉持世代友好的初心。
In the face of a far from simple international situation and external environment, we need to maintain a commitment to eternal friendship, work hard for the well-being of the people, enhance the unique values of China-Russian relations, cultivate new drivers of cooperation, and make tireless efforts to protect our legitimate rights and interests as well as fundamental norms of international relations.
On Thursday, the summit also saw Belarus become the 10th nation to join the group as an official member.
The decision on the full membership of the Republic of Belarus in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization has been taken. I'd like to greet the President of the Republic of Belarus, respected Alexander Grigorievich Lukashenko. Your country has completed all necessary procedures in a short time on the way to full membership of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Now, the other 9 members of the SCO are Russia, China, India, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. The bloc is also complemented by 14 dialogue partners such as Armenia, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. Now, the meeting in Kazakhstan between Putin and Xi is the second in 2 months as they continue to face pressure from the West over their regional policies. During their last meeting in Beijing, Putin and Xi vowed to deepen ties and took digs at international organizations and blocs, including the G20, the United Nations, and NATO. Moscow and Beijing have deepened their economic, military, and political ties since Russia's invasion of Ukraine back in 2022. Both Putin and Xi also repeatedly call for a new global order against what they call a United States and NATO-led hegemony. And speaking of Putin, 2 Russian warships have docked in the Latin American nation of Venezuela after conducting military exercises in the Atlantic Ocean. Moscow says the drills were conducted to show its presence in remote and important regions. Now, this comes weeks after 4 Russian naval vessels, including a nuclear-powered submarine, visited Cuba for 5 days. Now, the vessels that arrived in Venezuela include a logistics ship and a frigate capable of carrying hypersonic missiles. Both of these vessels are part of Russia's Northern Fleet. The Venezuelan army has welcomed the Russian Navy, saying their stopover expresses Moscow's friendship, solidarity, and support towards the South American nation.
Today we received, together with a representation of the government of La Guaira and the mayor, these sister ships from the Russian Federation, who in their passage through the Caribbean are making a stop in our state of La Guaira to rest, to share, to express with the crews of these ships their friendship, their solidarity, and, of course, their support to Venezuela, their backing.
Now, the Russian fleet's visit comes as Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is eyeing a 3rd term in the presidential election on the 28th of July. Meanwhile, the United States has urged Maduro to ensure the election will be competitive and inclusive.
In the context of Venezuela, you've heard us say this before, we, of course, welcome dialogue in good faith, and we support the Venezuelan people's desire for competitive and inclusive elections on July 28th. And we are clear-eyed that democratic change will not be easy and certainly requires a serious commitment. We're going to continue to work with the international community and democratic actors in Venezuela to support the aspirations of the Venezuelan people.
Now, on Wednesday, senior U.S. officials and Venezuelan authorities resumed talks to improve fraught relations between the 2 countries. Washington has expressed concerns about whether Maduro will make good on his promises to hold a free and fair election. Earlier, Western nations dismissed his 2018 re-election as a sham, and in April, Washington reimposed oil sanctions on Venezuela, accusing Maduro of not complying with electoral guarantees he made in deals with the opposition. Now, reports are that secret negotiations between the United States and Venezuela in Qatar last year helped Maduro to schedule the election this month. And now it remains to be seen how the new round of talks between Caracas and Washington will turn out in the presence of Russian forces in the country. And finally, from Germany, the nation's first African-born member of parliament, Karamba Diaby, has announced his decision to step away from politics after enduring years of racist abuse. The 62-year-old MP, who began his tenure in 2013, has communicated that he will not be contesting in the upcoming federal election. The MP says that he and his team have been subjected to hate mail, racist name-calling, and even death threats. Our next report explains the MP's turbulent political career.
On a cloudy morning in September 2013, a chemist born in Senegal received a warm welcome in Germany's parliament. Karamba Diaby was elected as the country's first member of parliament with African roots. On being asked how he felt about his election, he said there's a bit of excitement, there's curiosity, and of course, about what's coming. But little did he know, the turmoil in his political career had just started. Soon after taking his seat, Karamba Diaby was beaten up. He received death threats and insulting emails and was left scarred for being a black man. An alarm was raised when the German MP discovered bullet holes in the windows of his constituency office. Taking to social media, Diaby wrote that he was horrified and shocked with the hate he was receiving. But nothing shunted his morale, and he vowed to fight back. However, very soon a series of death threats quickly took over Diaby's political career. On a near-daily basis, he was intimidated up to an extent that Germany had to toughen online speech laws. Diaby had become prey to virtual haters who were time and again criticizing him for his race and his color. In February 2020, the German government approved a new package of measures instructing social media networking firms such as Facebook and Twitter, now X, to quickly remove any offending content intimidating any German politician. But shockwaves were sent across the country when just last year Karamba Diaby reported that his offices had been targeted in another arson attack. While everyone escaped unhurt, Diaby said his offices would be out of service for some time. And now, after years of torture and racial discrimination, German MP Karamba Diaby has resigned. He announced that he would not stand in next year's federal election. Diaby's decision came just weeks after he laid out a litany of hate messages that he and his staff received. Though he claims that the racist slurs and death threats were not the main reasons for his latest decision. However, it is widely believed that they have played a part in Diaby wanting to walk away from politics. Working alongside the Social Democrats Party for nearly 2 decades, Diaby promised to remain active in the SPD campaigns, especially in the coming 15 months leading to the elections in September 2025.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden. How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment. So thank you for making Firstpost 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished. loss to the West Indies, what can you expect from this?
Hello, I'm Alison Green, coming to you from Durban, South Africa. Today we have a special show.
Start with a report on India's shifting nuclear posture. For the first time since India officially became a nuclear power.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Aaron Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital,